I found my wife's second phone at 2:00 a.m. on a Monday, not because I was looking for it, but because our 4-year-old had a nightmare. Caleb's cry cut through the darkness like a knife. That particular wail that every parent knows means terror, not just discomfort. I was out of bed before I was fully awake, my feet carrying me down the hallway to his room on autopilot. Kendra wasn't beside me. She was at a girls' weekend in St. George with some friends from the ward. At least that's what she'd told me. I crossed the threshold into Caleb's room, and my foot came down on something hard. The pain shot up through my arch, and I stumbled, catching myself on his dresser. My son was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face, reaching for me. "Daddy, there was a monster." "Your monster's buddy." I scooped him up, feeling his small body tremble against my chest. "Just shadows. Daddy's here. It was big. It had teeth. Nothing's going to hurt you. I've got you." I held him until his breathing slowed, until his fingers stopped clutching my shirt so tightly, until sleep reclaimed him with the sudden completeness only children can manage. Then I laid him back down, tucked the blanket around his shoulders, and reached under the bed for whatever had nearly broken my foot. It was a cheap prepaid smartphone, the kind you buy at a gas station for $40. Not mine, not the kids. And Kendra's iPhone was charging in our bedroom, right where she always left it. I swear this was my first thought, was that maybe she was planning a surprise for my birthday. It was 3 weeks away. She'd done elaborate things before. For my 30th, she'd organized a scavenger hunt that took me all over the city, ending at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. I carried the phone back to our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, turning it over in my hands. The screen was cracked in one corner, a spiderweb fracture that caught the light from the street lamp outside. I pressed the power button and the lock screen appeared, asking for a pattern. I tried her usual, the shape she draws on her iPad, an L that turns into a little house. Nothing. I tried the kids' initials arranged in birth order. Nothing. I tried our anniversary date. Nothing. Then I tried our wedding date backward, because Kendra always said she liked doing things in reverse order, that it felt like discovering something new. The phone unlocked. I sat there for a long moment staring at the home screen. The wallpaper was just black. There were only 3 apps besides the defaults. A calculator, a weather app, and something called Signal. I'd heard of Signal. Encrypted messaging. The kind of thing journalists use to protect sources. The kind of thing whistleblowers use to stay anonymous. The kind of thing people use when they don't want anyone reading their conversations. I should have put the phone down. I should have waited for Kendra to come home. Should have sat her down and asked her what was going on, given her a chance to explain. That's what a reasonable person would do. That's what Bishop Whitmore would tell me to do if I went to him for counsel. Communicate, he'd say. Trust, but verify. Give each other the benefit of the doubt. I opened Signal. There was a group chat called Sisters in Spirit. 11 members and a private conversation with someone labeled only as T. The private messages went back 3 months. They started innocuous enough discussions about a church committee. They were both on something about marriage enrichment resources. Then they became personal, started including phrases like "I can still smell you on my pillow" and "counting the hours until Tuesday." There were references to photographs I couldn't bring myself to look at. There were descriptions of encounters that made my stomach turn. Nothing explicit enough to be crude, but clear enough that I understood exactly what they meant. And there were plans for the next time that included details about my work schedule, my kids' school hours, my mother's Tuesday bridge clip. "Can't wait for Tuesday," one message read. "The house will be empty. The kids have school until 3. Tuesday. Today was Tuesday. Well, Wednesday now, technically 2:37 a.m. Wednesday morning, and my wife was supposed to be in St. George with her girlfriends. I hate when you're gone this long," Tyler had written. 3 days feels like forever. "I know," Kendra replied, "but it's good cover." Matt never questions girls' weekends. He never questions because I trusted her. I switched to the group chat. The Sisters in Spirit conversation was worse, much worse. 11 women, all from my ward or neighbouring wards, based on the context clues. Trading tips on alibis and cover stories, discussing their various situations with the clinical detachment of project managers, reviewing quarterly reports. One woman, her contact name was just M, seemed to be the leader. She'd founded the group 2 years ago, recruited members one by one, built an entire infrastructure for organized betrayal. Remember, one of her messages read, "What happens outside the covenant stays outside the covenant. We're not bad women. We're just women with needs our husbands can't meet. The church asks us to be everything. Perfect mothers, perfect wives, perfect disciples. But it never asks our husbands to meet us halfway. This is balance. This is survival." The replies were a chorus of agreement, validation, support. These women had convinced themselves they were victims, freedom fighters, taking back something that had been stolen from them. My wife was one of them. I read for almost 2 hours. My hands shook the entire time, but I didn't cry. I don't know why. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe some part of me had already moved past grief and into something colder, harder, more useful. At 4:30 a.m., I opened my laptop and created an encrypted cloud folder. Then I went through every message, every photograph reference, every damning piece of evidence, and I screenshot it all. 247 images. I organized them by participant, by date, by type. I created a spreadsheet cross-referencing the women's screen names with likely real identities based on contextual details. I uploaded everything to the cloud, verified the sync completed, checked the backups. Then I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, under my son's bed, where she'd hidden it because she knew I'd never look there. Because 4-year-old boys don't need secret phones. Because I was predictable. Because I was clueless. I went to the guest room. I didn't sleep. Kendra came home Wednesday evening glowing like she'd spent the weekend at a spa instead of wherever she'd actually been. Her skin had that flush it gets when she's happy. Her hair was freshly styled. She was wearing a new blouse I didn't recognize. She dropped her overnight bag by the door and crossed the living room to where I sat on the couch, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "Missed you," she murmured against my ear. "Missed you, too." Emma looked up from her homework at the kitchen table. Noah was drawing in his sketchbook, tongue poking out in concentration, the way it always did when he was working on something important. Lily was showing Caleb how to build a tower with blocks, patient and gentle with her little brother. My family, my whole life, my entire reason for existing. Kendra moved around the couch and settled beside him, tucking her feet under her the way she always did. Was everything okay while I was gone? Everything was fine. Caleb had a nightmare Monday, but I got him back to sleep. Poor baby, she made a sympathetic face. He's been having so many lately. We should probably talk to the pediatrician. Maybe. And how was work? That big project you were worried about. It's fine. on track, she smiled and reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm and soft and familiar. I had held this hand through the birth of 4 children. I had held it at her grandmother's funeral, at my father's memorial, at 100 Sunday dinners in 1,000 ordinary evenings. I felt absolutely nothing. "You seem tired," she said, studying my face. "Everything okay? Just didn't sleep well. You know how it is when you're not here." She smiled at that, the smile she used when she thought I was being sweet. "I know. I sleep better when you're next to me, too." I wondered if that was true. I wondered if she slept well in St. George or wherever she'd actually been. I wondered how many Tuesdays she'd spent in someone else's bed, how many lies she'd told me, how many times she'd looked into my eyes and said, "I love you," while hiding another man's memory. "I'm going to stand dinner," I said, pulling my hand away. "You should go say hi to the kids." "Matt," she caught my arm. "Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, just tired." She didn't look convinced, but she let me go. I spent that night lying awake beside her, listening to her breathe, watching the shadows move across the ceiling. 14 years. We'd been married for 13 years. We'd knelt across the altar in the Salt Lake Temple and made promises that were supposed to last for eternity till death do us part. No, we'd promised more than that. We'd promised forever. I was looking at a stranger. Thursday morning, I made lists. That's what I do when I'm overwhelmed. I break things down into components, analyze variables, identify paths forward. It's how I approach cybersecurity problems at work, how I debug complex systems, how I make sense of things that don't make sense. After I dropped the kids at school, I went to a coffee shop on the other side of town and opened my laptop. I created a document called Evidence File and started organizing what I knew. Fact: 11 women in an organized cheating network, my wife among them. Fact: their communication was sophisticated. Burner phones, encrypted apps, shared alibis. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a single mistake. This was infrastructure. Fact: my wife was sleeping with Tyler Bennett. I wrote his name and stared at it. Tyler Bennett. I knew Tyler. He owned a successful landscaping company. You saw his trucks all over the neighborhood. He served on the High Council. He taught Sunday school. He'd sat in my living room, eaten dinner at my table, played catch with my sons in the backyard. He'd been on the committee that recommended me for my current calling. 6 months ago, Tyler had helped me move a piano. We'd spent 4 hours together sweating and laughing and trading stories about mission experiences. He told me about his 2 years in Argentina, how he'd learned to love a country that wasn't his own. I'd told him about Brazil, about the people who'd changed my life. At the end, he'd clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Matt, you're one of the good ones." And the whole time, he was sleeping with my wife. Fact: Tyler's wife, Jessica, was also in the grim chat. She wasn't complaining about her husband's infidelity. She was participating in her own with someone named Ryan. The Bennett had an arrangement, apparently an unspoken agreement to look the other way. I counted the potential casualties, 11 wives, 11 husbands. Based on what I remembered from war directories and church activities, at least 30 children among them, maybe more. 30 kids like Emma and Noah and Lily and Caleb just trying to grow up in what they thought were stately homes. If this came out when this came out, it would be catastrophic. Friday night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in my home office and pulled out the tuck-in again. I'd been adding to it all week, filling in details, connecting dots. But I still hadn't made any decisions about what to do with the information. I stared at the blank space at the bottom of the document, then started typing. Entry 1. I will not be a victim. I will not be a martyr. I will protect my children. That was my mission statement. Everything that followed would flow from those 3 sentences. The next 8 weeks were the longest performance of my life. I didn't confront Kendra. I didn't go to the bishop. I didn't tell my mother or my sister or my best friend from high school. I just continued. I woke up every morning, made breakfast for the kids, kissed my wife goodbye, went to my home office, and did my job. Then I worked on my other project. Week 1 was reconnaissance. I created profiles on each of the 11 women, cross-referencing the group chat messages to identify their affair partners. The picture that emerged was Byzantine in its complexity. Lakan Tanhil, the apparent founder of the sisterhood, was the young women's president. Every Sunday, she stood in front of a room full of teenage girls and taught lessons about virtue, moral cleanliness, the importance of keeping oneself pure for marriage. Then she went home and planned her next rendezvous with her personal trainer. Brittany Hayes was sleeping with her husband's business partner. Kevin Hayes had no idea his wife was betraying him with the man he trusted most, the man he'd started a company with, the man he considered his best friend. Rachel Palmer was sleeping with her therapist. The irony was almost imperfect. She'd started seeing Dr. Stevens for anxiety about her marriage, and he'd convinced her the solution was to have an affair with him. Nicole Turner, Lauren Mitchell, Stephanie Webb. One by one, I mapped their connections, documented their patterns, built a picture of the network's operations. In the chat history, I found references to Ashley's close call. Ashley Grant had almost gotten caught about 6 months before. Her husband found a receipt for a hotel room, and she'd barely talked her way out of it. The fear had shaken her enough that she'd left the group, gone dark. The other women talked about in hurried tones, afraid she might break and confess. I filed that away, a potential weak link or a witness. Week 2 was observation. I started paying attention to Kendra in ways I never had before. The way she angled her phone away from me when she texted. Screen brightness turned low. The way she volunteered at the food bank every Tuesday, except when I called the food bank's volunteer coordinator to ask about sending attention, she mentioned they didn't have Tuesday shifts. The way she always showered immediately after coming home from book club. The way she never quite met my eyes when she talked about her day. I documented dates, times, her stated locations versus her probable real locations. I didn't follow her. That felt like a line I wasn't ready to cross. But I noticed things and I wrote them down. On Tuesday of that week, I told Kendra I am meetings all day. Then I drove to the coffee shop I'd been using as my off-site office and waited. At 10:30 a.m., I drove by our house slowly, like a stranger passing through the neighborhood. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The security system log on my phone showed she disarmed it at 9:58 a.m. and armed it again at 7:03 a.m. She was gone on a Tuesday morning while I was supposedly at work and the kids were at school. I drove back to the coffee shop and sat in the parking lot for a long time staring at nothing. At 2:47 p.m., the security system log showed she disarmed it again. She was home 15 minutes before school let out. Just enough time to shower, change clothes, look like she'd been home all day. That was the pattern. Every Tuesday for months, maybe years. While I trusted her, week 3 was financial assessment. I drove to Salt Lake City, far enough from our community that I wouldn't into anyone I knew, and met with a family law attorney named David Parsons. His office was downtown 19th floor, glass walls overlooking the temple's spires in the distance. The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat across from David and laid out my situation in clinical terms like I was describing a network breach to a client. If you can prove infidelity and maintain stability for the children, he said, making notes on a yellow legal pad, you have a strong case for primary physical custody. Utah courts prioritize the best interests of the child above all else. You work from home. Yes, have for 6 years. And you're involved in their daily routines, school pickups, homework activities. I handle most of it. My wife has outside commitments. He nodded, his pen scratching across the paper. What about assets? The house was my grandmother's. She left it to me specifically. My name only on the deed. Kendra's never been on it. That simplifies things considerably. He looked up. What about shared accounts, retirement funds? We have a joint checking for household expenses. My salary goes into my account first, then I transfer what we need. I have had a 401k through work. She doesn't have any retirement savings. She stopped working when Emma was born. 12 years of being a stay-at-home mother. Carries weight, David said carefully. The court may award her some portion of retirement assets, potentially alimony. But primary custody, he tapped his pen against the pad. If you can demonstrate you're the more stable parent, the more involved parent, and you have evidence of her infidelity, you have a strong case. I left his office with a folder full of paperwork and a clear understanding of the battlefield. Kendra had leverage. 12 years of mothering, but I had leverage, too, and I intended to use it. Week 4 was corroboration. I tracked down Ashley Grant's new address through a combination of public accounts and social media. She'd moved wards after her close call, but she still lived in the area, 20 minutes away, in a quiet neighborhood near the university. Her Instagram showed pictures of her kids, her garden, her attempts at normally. I couldn't approach her directly, not without tipping my hand, but I knew where to find her if I needed her. That week, Emma found me in the kitchen after everyone else had gone to bed. She was 12, old enough to notice things, smart enough to piece them together. Dad, she leaned against the counter, arms crossed, so much like her mother it made my chest ache. Is Mom okay? She seems different. I sat down the dish I was drying. What do you mean, sweetheart? I don't know. She's always on her phone. She's always going somewhere. And sometimes she looks at you like she trailed off shrieking. Like what? Like she's somewhere else. Like she's thinking about something that isn't us. My heart cracked down the middle. Have you noticed anything specific? Anything that worried you? Emma hesitated. Last week when I came home early from piano, she was on the phone. She didn't hear me come in. She was laughing at something and she said, she stopped, her face troubled. She said, I wish it could always be like this. And then she saw me and hung up really fast. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. She was getting so tall. When had that happened? When had my little girl started becoming a young woman? Whatever happens, I said into her hair, I will always protect you. You and Noah and Lily and Caleb. Do you understand? She pulled back, searching my face with those sharp, knowing eyes. You're scaring me, Dad. Don't be scared. I've got you. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded and went back upstairs. I stood in the dark kitchen for a long time after she left, thinking about all the ways a home could look whole from the outside while crumbling from within. Weeks 5 through 8 I prepared. I met with David Parsons 3 more times, refining our strategy. We decided to file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences rather than adultery. Less dramatic, less platic. The adultery evidence would be held in reserve. Leverage if Kendra contested custody. A nuclear option I hoped I wouldn't need to deploy. The thing is, David explained during our third meeting, if you lead with adultery, you're inviting a circus. Her attorney will demand proof, which means depositions, witnesses, potentially a trial. If you lead with irreconcilable differences, you keep more control. You can introduce the affair evidence if she fights on custody, but only then. And if she doesn't fight, then it stays in the file, private, just between us and the court. I nodded. That's what I want. Private, can I ask why? Tafit leaned back in his chair. Most men in your situation, they want blood. They want everyone to know what she did. I thought about how to answer that. There are children involved, I said finally, not just mine. 30 kids, maybe more across all these families. If I go public, I'm not just ending my marriage. I'm detonating a bomb in the middle of my community. Those kids didn't do anything wrong. And the other husbands, the ones who don't know. That was the question I'd been wrestling with for weeks. Here's the thing. I could expose the entire network. One email to Bishop Whitmore with all my evidence, and church disciplinary councils would convene for all a lesson winning. Possible excommunications. The whole community would know. My children would become paras, the kids whose mother was part of a cheating ring. Or I could stay quiet, handle my own situation privately, let the other husbands remain in ignorance, never knowing their wives were betraying them. Both options felt wrong. I haven't decided yet, I told David. But when I do, it won't be through the courts. He raised an eyebrow but didn't push. In the end, I found a middle path. I would give each husband the information about his own wife anonymously. No mention of the network, no mention of me, just the facts, the evidence delivered in a way that couldn't be traced back. What each man did with that information would be his choice. I prepared 10 evidence packets, one for each husband except myself. Each contained only what was relevant to that man's marriage. Screenshots of his wife's messages with her affair partner, nothing more. No return address. I'd mail them from different cities at different times after my own divorce was finalized. During week 7, Emma confronted me again. We were in the car driving back from her piano lesson. The sun was setting, painting the mountains orange and gold. She was quiet for most of the ride, staring out the window, which was unusual. Emma always had something to say about her day, her friends, her teachers. Then stopped at a red light. She asked the question I'd been treating. Is Mom having an affair? I nearly rear-ended the car in front of us. What makes you ask that? I saw her texting someone. She was in the bathroom with the door cracked, and she didn't know I was in the hallway. She was smiling at her phone in this way that Anna's voice was tight. She doesn't smile at you like that, Dad. Not anymore. The light turned green. I drove. I'm handling it, I said after a long silence. I need you to trust me, Emma. Are you going to divorce her? I'm going to protect this family, whatever that looks like. She turned to face me, and I saw tears on her cheeks. My 12-year-old daughter crying in the passenger seat, carrying a burden no child should have to carry. I don't want to live with her, she whispered. Issue, if it comes to that, I want to live with you. Nothing's decided yet, but when it is, I want you to know. I reached over and squeezed her hand. I know, sweetheart, I know. Our 14th wedding anniversary fell in week 9. Kendra planned a romantic dinner, reservations at our favorite restaurant, a babysitter for the kids. A new dress that must have cost more than our grocery budget. She was trying, or at least she was going through the motions of trying. We sat across from each other at a candle-lit table, eating food I couldn't taste, talking about nothing. She told me about Relief Society activities. I told her about a project at work. We discussed the kids' schedules, upcoming ward events, whether we should repaint the living room. Two strangers making small talk, pretending they still knew each other. "Remember our first anniversary?" Kendra asked, swirling wine in her glass. "We were so broke we couldn't afford a babysitter, so we put Emma down early and made spaghetti in the kitchen. I remember. You burned the garlic bread. You said you liked it crispy." She laughed, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw the woman I'd married, the girl who caught my eye at a singles ward dance, who'd made me laugh harder than anyone I'd ever met, who'd said yes when I asked her to marry me after 6 months of dating because we both knew it was right. Then the moment passed and I saw her again as she was now, a stranger wearing my wife's face. "I love you, Matt," she said, reaching across the table for my hand. "I know things have been complicated, but I love you. I want you to know that." I looked at her fingers intertwined with mine, the wedding ring I'd saved for 6 months to buy. The hand I'd held through the births of our children. "I know you believe that," I said. Her smile faltered slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means I love you too. It means I'm glad we have tonight." She squeezed my hand and changed the subject. That night, after we got home and the babysitter left, Kendra reached for me in bed. Her hand found my chest, slid lower. "It's been a while," she murmured. I caught her wrist. "I'm tired. Long week, Matt." She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me in the darkness. "You've seemed distant lately. Is everything okay? Just work stress. That project I mentioned. You always take on too much." She traced a finger along my jaw. "Let me help you relax." "Not tonight. I'm sorry." She pulled back and I felt her disappointment like a physical weight between us. "Okay, if you're sure." "I'm sure." She went over, putting her back to me, and within minutes her breathing slowed into sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Tyler Bennett and Tuesday mornings, and the face, as clueless, burned into my memory. 2 days later, I checked the burner phone again. Kendra was in the shower. I could hear the water and the bathroom door. The kids were at school. I had maybe 10 minutes. I retrieved the phone from under Caleb's bed, entered the pattern, opened Signal. There were new messages from Tyler. "Tuesday can't come fast enough. I hate seeing you with him at church." Kendra's response: "I know, but we have to be careful." "He's clueless," suspected Tyler. "After the kids are grown, we could actually be together. Jay and I are basically roommates anyway." "Kendra, let's not talk about the future. Let's just enjoy what we have." "Tyler, I want a future with you. I think about it all the time, waking up next to you every morning, not having to hide." "Kendra, that's a beautiful thing, but it's just a dream." "Tyler, it doesn't have to be. He's clueless." I closed the phone, put it back, went to my office. That night I didn't sleep. At 3:00 a.m., I made my final decision. I would file for divorce in 3 weeks. I would not tell Kendra I knew about the affair, not until she was served with papers. I would have my custody case ready before she understood what was happening. And I would send the anonymous letters to the other husbands 1 month after my divorce was finalized, ensuring no one connected me to the cascade. Before I logged off the phone, I checked the group chat one last time. There was a new message and Leonard Winnen. Heather Dixon. I think I need to tell my husband. I can't do this anymore. The guilt is eating me alive. The responses came quickly, a flood of concern and persuasion. Don't do anything rash. We're here for you. Let's talk about this. Call me tomorrow. Remember what you'd be giving up. Think about your kids. Please, if you tell him, it affects all of us. The network was fragile. One confession could bring it all down. I closed the app and went to bed. Week 10, the execution. I met with David Parsons when final time. His secretary brought us coffee while we reviewed the documents. Divorce petition, custody motion, financial disclosures. The adultery evidence was sealed in a separate file, ready if we needed it. You sure about this? David asked, pen poised above the signature line. Once you file, you can't unfill. I'm sure. I signed everything. I arranged for a process server to find Kendra at her Tuesday book club. I gave him a description of her car, a likely time frame, a location she'd have to return to eventually. He didn't need to know where she actually spent her Tuesdays. He just needed to find her car. Tuesday morning, I took the kids to school. I heckined Emma extra long, whispering, "I've got you," into her hair. I hugged Noah and told him his latest drawing was his best yet. I hugged Lily and promised we'd have ice cream after dinner. I crouched down to Caleb's level and held his small face in my hands. "Daddy loves you," I said, "more than anything in the world." "I know, Daddy," he grinned, gap-toothed and innocent. "I love you too much." He spread his arms as wide as they would go. I watched them walk into the school building, then drove to my coffee shop office and waited. At 11:30 a.m. I got a text from David, paper served, server confirmed receipt. 20 minutes later my phone rang. Kendra's name on the screen. I answered. "What is this?" Her voice was shaking. Anger, fear, confusion. "What are you doing?" "I'm filing for divorce." "You can't just, we need to talk about this." This came out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere for everyone. Long pause. I could hear her breathing ragged and uneven. Traffic noise in the background. She must be in a parking lot somewhere. Tyler's parking lot, probably. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "It means you should call a lawyer." I hung up. I picked up the kids from school at 3:15 p.m. I'd informed the front office that morning that I was authorized for pickup. No one else, not even their mother, until further notice. The secretary had looked at me strangely, but hadn't argued. I drove them to my mother's house. Linda Caldwell, 65, widowed for 7 years, the strongest woman I'd ever known. She took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. Come in, she said, gathering the kids toward her kitchen. "Who wants hot chocolate?" Caleb shouted. "Me too," Lily echoed. Noah followed silently, his sketchbook clutched to his chest. Emma hung back, catching my arm. "Dad, is it happening?" I nodded. "Good," she said, and went inside. "Matthew." My mother appeared in the doorway, her face worried but steady. "What happened?" "I'll tell you soon. Right now, I need you to trust me. I've always trusted you." She put a hand on my cheek, the same gesture she'd used when I was 5 years old and scared of the dark. "Go do what you need to do. The children are safe here." I drove home. Kendra's car was in the driveway. I sat in my own vehicle for a long moment, watching the house, preparing myself. Then I went inside. She was sitting on the couch, clutching a wad of tissues, her face blotchy and strewn with tears. She looked up when I entered, and her expression cycled through a dozen emotions. Relief, fear, anger, desperation, back to fear. "Please, Matt." Her voice cracked. "Tell me what's going on." "Whatever I did. Where's your other phone?" She froze. "The one you keep under Caleb's bed," I continued. The one with signal on it. All the color drained from her face. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I've known for 8 weeks. I've read everything. Matt, please. I'm not interested in explanations. I kept my voice level calm. I'd practiced this in the mirror. I'm not interested in apologies. I'm interested in my children having stability. They need their mother. She was crying harder now, her words tumbling over each other. You can't take them from me. They'll have their mother on a custody schedule determined by the court. But this marriage is over, Kendra. You made that choice the first time you walked out of this house to meet him. Not me. It wasn't. She stopped, tried again. Tyler, he understood me. He listened to me in ways you never did. I was drowning. Matt, after Caleb was born, I was drowning. And you didn't even notice. So, your solution was to have an affair. My solution was to survive. She was on her feet now, her voice rising. Do you have any idea what it's like inheriting to everyone? Perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect relief society counselor. I lost myself, Matt. I lost who I was. Tyler made me feel like a person again, Tylen. I let the name sit in the air between us. Tyler Bennett, who taught Sunday school last week about the importance of honoring our covenants, who sat in our living room 6 months ago and told me I was one of the good ones. That Tyler, she flinched. You're in a group of 11 women who help each other cheat? I said, you share alibus. You coach each other on avoiding detection. You have an entire operational security protocol. This wasn't a cry for help, Kendra. This was organized deception. Her face went slack. She hadn't known I knew about the network. What are you going to do with all of that? Nothing. I watched her carefully as I said it. I'm not going to the bishop. I'm not destroying those families. I'm just ending this one. But you could ruin. I could, but I won't because this is about my children, not revenge. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. You have 1 hour to pack a bag, I said. Then I need you to leave. Where am I supposed to go? Your parents' house? A hotel? A friend's place? I don't care, but you're not staying here tonight, Matt. She took a step toward me. Please? Can we talk about this? We've been married for 14 years. Don't we owe it to each other to try? We owed each other a lot of things. You stopped paying that debt a long time ago. She didn't argue. She went upstairs, moving like someone in a trance, and I heard her opening drawers, closing suitcases. 53 minutes later, she came back down with an overnight bag and stood in the doorway looking at me. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. Then you should have made different choices. She left. I spent that night alone in the house for the first time in 14 years. I walked through the rooms, touching things, the kids' artwork on the refrigerator, the family photos on the mantel, the couch where we'd watched 1,000 movies together. I didn't cry. I made lists for the next day. The battle for my family lasted 8 weeks. Kendra's father, Nathan Ashworth, showed up at my door 3 days after I filed. Nathan was former bishop, current stake high councilman, a man who had spent his entire adult life projecting an image of righteous perfection. Matthew, he didn't wait to be invited in. Just pushed Tasty into the living room. We need to talk about this situation. There's nothing to talk about, Nathan. You're destroying this family over what? Some mistake? I'm not discussing specifics with you. I was a bishop for 8 years. I counseled dozens of couples through difficulties. I've seen marriages survive worse than whatever you think, Hentert. And I've seen children survive worse than divorce. Mine will be fine. His jaw tightened. If you drag this through court, Let that does to the kids. Think about what people will say. What people will say. I let the words hang there. That's what you're worried about. Your reputation. Your daughter's reputation. Not the truth. The truth is that marriage is hard. The truth is that people make mistakes. The truth is that forgiveness. The truth, I cut him off, is that your daughter has been sleeping with Tyler Bennett for at least 3 months. The truth is that she's part of a network of women who coven for each other's affairs. The truth is that she looked me in the eye every single day and lied. And she's still lying now. That's the truth, Nathan. So don't talk to me about forgiveness. He went pale. That's you can't prove. I have 247 screenshots that say otherwise. Now get out of my house. He left, but not before promising that he would speak to the bishop about this situation. I let him. I had nothing to hide. The bishop meeting came at Leighton. David Whitmore called me into his office just to check in. Nathan had apparently suggested I was having some kind of mental health crisis and needed to be released from my calling. Matt, Bishop Whitmore gestured to the chair across from his desk. How are you holding up? I'm managing, Bishop. Thank you for asking. Nathan mentioned some concerns about your state of mind. I'm sure he did. Bishop Whitmore studied me for a long moment. I've known you for 12 years, Matt. You're one of the steadiest men in this ward. If something's happened that's shaken you, I'd like to help. I considered my options. I could tell him everything. Show him the evidence, blow the whistle, watch 11 families explode in front of church disciplinary councils. Or I could stay quiet, protect my children, handle my own business. My marriage is ending, I said carefully. Kendra violated our covenants. I've chosen not to make this a church matter, but I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. Can you tell me what happened? No, because if I tell you, you'll be obligated to act, and I don't want to destroy more lives than necessary. That's an unusual position. I'm protecting my children, and honestly, Bishop, I'm protecting yours too. Trust me when I say it's better if you don't know the details. He didn't fully understand. How could he? But he respected my boundary. We talked for a few more minutes about the kids, about support systems, about the importance of maintaining faith during trials. Then he let me go. The custody hearing came 6 weeks after filing. Kendra's attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Vance, pushed for 50 fetty hesity. My client has been a devoted stay-at-home mother for 12 years, she argued. She knows these children better than anyone. Splitting custody equally serves their best interests. David presented our case methodically. My work-from-home schedule, my documented involvement in the children's daily lives, Kendra's pattern and explained absences. I'd documented 19 Tuesday errands over the past 2 months alone. The children's stated preferences, particularly Emma's written statement expressing her desire to live primarily with her father. Your Honor, David said, the evidence shows that Caldwell is not just an involved father. He's the primary stabilizing force in these children's lives. His work schedule allows him to depress them for school pickups, homework help, extracurricular activities. Mrs. Caldwell's outside commitments have made her increasingly absent from the home. The judge, a nonsense woman named Margaret Ellis, reviewed the evidence, asked pointed questions, and ruled in my favor. Primary physical custody to me. Kendra got Wednesday evenings and every other weekend. Kendra called me that night. Her voice was raw with anguish. They took my kids from me. You'll still see them regularly. It's not the same, it's not. She broke off, sobbing. This isn't who you are, Matt. You're kind. You're forgiving. You're punishing me. No, I'm protecting them from instability. Your choices created that instability. What can I do? What would it take to fix this? Nothing. This isn't a negotiation. You've become cold. I thought about that. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had become, or maybe I just stopped being naive. I've become clear, I said, and hung up. Tyler Bennett came to see me 2 weeks later. He showed up at my working space during lunch, swaggering through the door like he owned the place. Same confident smile he wore at church. Same easy charm. The smile faltered when he saw my face. Matt, we need to talk. No, we don't. Look, whatever you think you know, I know exactly what happened. I kept my voice low. We were in public. I know about the Tuesdays. I know about Sisters in Spirit. I know about Jessica and Ryan. You two have quite the arrangement. He went pale. It was satisfying in a way I'm not proud of. I don't know what Kendra told you. Kendra didn't tell me anything. I found her other phone. I read the messages, all of them. I leaned forward slightly. Leave. Don't contact him and stay away from my children. Are you going to tell people? I'm going to focus on my kids. What you do with your marriage is your problem. He stared at me for a long moment. Something shifting behind his eyes. Fear, calculation, maybe a flicker of shame. Then he turned and left without another word. 2 days later, I heard through the ward grapevine that the Bennetts were taking a trip to work on their marriage. They were scared. They had no idea how much I knew or what I planned to do with it. The divorce was finalized 4 weeks after the custody ruling. I got primary custody. The house stayed with me. Assets were split modestly. Kendra got a small portion of my retirement savings and a modest alimony payment for 3 years. Enough to get back on her feet. It was over. My marriage was over. Except it wasn't over. Not really, because I still had those letters. I sent them over the course of a single week, mailed from 5 different cities during a work trip I'd scheduled months in advance. 10 letters, 10 husbands, 10 chances for truth. Each one contained only what was relevant to that man's marriage. No mention of the network, no mention of me. Just screenshots printed on plain paper with a typed note. I'm sorry to tell you this. Your wife is having an affair. The proof is attached. The first domino fell within days. Ryan Foster filed for divorce. His wife, Amanda, had been sleeping with a non-Mormon contractor named Derek Walsh. Ryan didn't know about the network. He just knew about Derek, but it was an F. The ward was buzzing with whispered speculation. The second domino fell a week later. Kevin Hayes discovered his wife Brittany's affair with his business partner. He didn't file immediately. Smart man. He dissolved the business partnership first, protecting his employees, restructuring ownership. Then he filed. The business survived. 20 people kept their jobs. Then they came faster. Megan Powell's husband confronted her at a ward activity, his voice cracking as he demanded who she'd been seeing. She tried to lie. He had the screenshots. She couldn't lie her way out of screenshots. Nicole Turner's husband filed quietly. No drama, no perplexings, just papers served and a marriage ended. Lauren Mitchell's husband, 30 years old, married less than 5 years, had a breakdown. He missed a week of wank, showed up at his parents' house at 2 a.m. crying. But eventually, he pulled himself together and filed. 2. Rachel Palmer's husband reported her therapist to the licensing board before filing for divorce. Dr. Stevens had violated every ethical guideline in existence. He lost his license within months. Stephanie Webb's husband took their kids to his parents in Idaho and filed from there. 7 divorces told, including mine. 7 marriages ended. 50+ lives disrupted. Heather Dixon, the one who had wanted to confess, actually did confess before any letter reached her husband. She came clean on her own, sobbing and broken, begging for forgiveness. Her husband gave it. They entered counseling. They were going to try. Hit for them, I thought. I hoped they made it. The ward was in chaos. An emergency stake meeting was called. The stake president, looking 10 years older than he had 2 lengths ago, spoke about a time of healing and announced increased marriage resources. No one knew the full picture, no one except me, and I will accept me. Ashley Grant reached out to me 3 weeks after the cascade began. She found me on social media, sent a message asking to meet. We met at a coffee shop far from either of our neighborhoods. 2 strangers who knew too much about each other's pain. "You're the one who sent the letters," she said. "Aren't you?" "What letters?" "Don't." Her voice was sharper than before. "I know it was you. I don't blame you. I needed to talk to someone who understood. I didn't confirm or deny. I just waited. I was in the group for 8 months," she said. I thought it was empowering. Maybe these women who had figured out how to have it all. The husband, the family, the church standing, plus something on the side that made them feel alive. She laughed bitterly. "God, that sounds so stupid now. Why did you leave?" "My husband found a receipt for a hotel room. I told him it was for a friend who was going through a rough time, and he believed me." But the look on his face. She shook her head. The trust was still there, but it was so fragile. I knew if I broke it again, there'd be nothing left. "So you stopped." I stopped. Told the group I was out. They weren't happy about it. I knew too much, you know. But I swore I'd never tell anyone. And I didn't until now. "You haven't told me anything I didn't already know." "Maybe not." She looked at me with something like respect. "You did what I couldn't. You told the truth. I didn't tell the truth. I gave people the chance to find it." She considered that same thing. We talked for another hour. She told me about how the group started. Megan Powell recruiting women who seemed unhappy in their marriages, creating a safe space that became something darker. She told me about the rules, the rituals, the way they convinced themselves they weren't doing anything wrong. We had this whole theology around it. She said, this idea that we were meeting needs our husbands couldn't meet, that we were actually saving our marriages by finding satisfaction elsewhere. It sounds insane now, but when you're in it, surrounded by other women saying the same things, it starts to feel normal. "Did your husband ever find out about everything?" I told him after I left the group. I told him everything and I waited for him to leave me. She smiled, fragile and hopeful. "He didn't. We're still working on it. I don't know if we'll make it, but we're trying." I envied her in a way, the chance to rebuild, the husband willing to forgive. We parted ways outside the coffee shop. She hugged me briefly and fiercely. "Thank you," she said, "for telling the truth, even if you won't admit it." Derek Walsh reached out to me 2 months later. Derek was the non-Mormon contractor who'd been sleeping with Amanda Foster. He'd figured out something was wrong on his own, recognized the pattern, noticed the similarities between Amanda's stories and things other women had said. When the divorces started cascading, he put the pieces together. We met at a bar, 2 men who had no business knowing each other. "I knew Amanda was lying," he said, nursing a beer. "I just didn't know about the whole network until everything blew up." She told me her husband was controlling, that she was planning to leave him, that I was helping her escape a bad situation. He laughed, but There was no humor in it. Turns out I was just one more lie she was telling. Did you know about the others? Not until your letters went out. Then people started talking, started comparing notes. He looked at me. It was you write the letters? I said nothing, thought so. He took a long drink. I'm not going to say I'm grateful exactly, but those men deserve to know. Whatever else happened, they deserve that. We became unlikely friends after that. Two outsiders who had seen the system for what it was. Kendra asked to meet me 11 months after the divorce was finalized. We went to a park, neutral territory. She looked thinner than before, tired, but something in her eyes had shifted. The desperation was gone. I know you sent those letters, she said. I didn't respond. You destroyed everything. Not just us. Everything. No, I kept my voice even. You destroyed it, you and 10 other women. I just let sunlight in. There were children. There are still children. They're being raised by parents who know the truth now. She was quiet for a long moment. You could have come to me first. We could have worked it out, like Tyler and Jessica worked it out, living separate lives in the same house. Both of you sneaking around. I shook my head. That's not working out, Kendra. That's slow decay. I loved you. You loved the life I gave you. There's a difference. She flinched, but she didn't argue. I'll see you at the custody exchange on Sunday, I said, and I walked away. 1 year the kids were thriving. Emma made honor roll, joined the debate team. Noah won an art contest. His piece was a family portrait, 4 figures standing in front of a house. Lily had adjusted to the schedule. Caleb didn't remember things any other way. Kendra had stabilized, living in an apartment, working part-time, seeing a therapist. We communicated through an app, short and business-like. The anger had faded into something duller. Tyler and Jessica Bennett moved to Arizona, fled the wreckage. I started seeing a therapist myself, someone outside my community. Do you regret sending those letters? She asked. I regret that I had to. And the women, the families, they made their choices. I made mine. I protected my kids. On a Saturday afternoon, I got an email from a man named James Holloway, California. We'd never met. You don't know me, but I think we have something in common. I discovered something about my wife's support group. I found messages referencing women in Utah. I think I found a pattern. I could use advice. The network was bigger than I thought. I opened a reply window. James, I typed. Here's what you need to do first. And I started writing.